I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby, here with three-bodied problem star Jovan Adepo. Jovan, first of all, let's go straight to it. How does it feel now to see the show become such a huge success and for word of mouth to be so strong?
It's an exciting time. I think the most exciting aspect about it is the fact that everyone who was involved in creating the show worked incredibly hard for a very long time. And so to be able to witness this moment after the show has aired and see its success, it's really exciting. And it's an honor to be a part of this cast and crew.
It's interesting how this was shot quite some time ago. Then there were some additional scenes that were shot, and obviously it's just taken quite a long time for it to finally hit. It's now the number one show on Netflix. The critics are really behind it, and people are really starting to fall in love with the story, the original story that they perhaps never read. I'm curious. So when you got the role, did you do much of a deep dive into Cixin Liu's mythology?
I did. So I hadn't heard of the books before getting the job. Once the audition notice or the meeting was set, and I spoke to the guys, Benioff, Dan Weiss, and Alexander Wu. I met with them during the summer before we started production. And after the chemistry reads and all of that was done, and I actually got on board to do the job, that is when I read the book. And it took me two passes because that book is dense. I know you've
Yeah.
seen it. The book is like two Bibles stacked together, and that's just the first one. So the first read through, I read, in traditional way from the book, and then the second time was an audio book, so that I could listen to it while I was driving because I was still filming Babylon at the time once I had gotten the job. So on my drives to work, I would just listen to the first book, and it took a lot of meetings, a lot of text messages, a lot of conversations with the writers just to understand uh, what they were attempting to adapt from the books and how the characters were going to all fit together in this giant puzzle. So um, I just felt lucky that I always had resources to assist me in building a complete character.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just quite amazing that Benioff, Weiss, and Wu, the trio, were able to wrestle this material into something so compelling and so character driven as well. But before we get into that, I just want to get a little nerdy. So, spoiler alert, everybody, if haven't seen the show yet, what are you doing here? Go and watch it, come back. Um, I This really blew my mind. The whole conceptual mythology behind the whole universe, the dark forest, the Fermi paradox, all this stuff that I had never heard of before, and now I read about in my spare time, which means I need to get out more. So I'm curious. So, what do you think about all of that really deep, exciting, hard sci-fi concepts like the wall faces, for example?
Well, these are concepts that are new to me as well. I'm not foreign to the sci-fi genre, but to say that I was a deep diver before the show, I'd be lying to you. But I think it's a really exciting genre to kind of become a new fan of, and I think it's a really exciting time for the show too as well because I think we're building and we're bringing in a lot of new sci-fi fans and hardcore sci-fi at that, and I think that's because the world building capabilities of the genre, it's like so vast and there's so many different routes that you can take in telling stories and presenting characters that I think people are going to continue to deep dive as you have and becoming more familiar with the genre, including
Absolutely.
myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's cool. I think it's good that it just gives the show that added element of the mystery and excitement. But I was thinking, okay, what was the scene that really hit home for me? And I remember when speaking to Rosalind Chow, your co-star, it was the
Mm,
scene at the cemetery. Because at
right.
first, when Ye is telling Saul this, this joke, I was very much just like Saul, thinking, what the hell is she saying?
Exactly.
How come it's not funny? But of course, it's such an important cautionary tale. I'm curious though. So I remember Rosalind saying it was a very hot day in England. You were all dressed up, with turtlenecks or whatever. And what was that like before Dan Weiss really started to explain what the joke was about? What were you thinking about? What does this all mean? And was that helpful for Saul as well to be like, well, I don't even know what's going on?
Yes, because that was just the stance that I had naturally. So I was like, this isn't acting. I'm just existing. I'm just being. Saul in this moment. But the joke being a representation of the dark force theory, that was something that we talked about after we shot it. But for me, I feel like the harder assignment was definitely for Roz in that scene because she was the one that was delivering the joke. So naturally, as you mentioned, I was able to just live in my being naive and not understanding what she's talking about. And I think it played very well. And of course, Rosalind was brilliant in the scene. But there were a lot of theories, especially a lot of the physics terms that we learned through filming this that I don't understand. I didn't go to school for physics. I was a poli-sci major, so I stayed away from the science. But we were, again, lucky enough to have a physicist on staff there with us to explain the best they could the very surface level of these terms and ideas, and just enough for us to be able to sound like we knew what we were talking about when we were performing the scenes. So again, that's another testament to just always having the resources that we needed, because Dad, our showrunners, David, Alex, and Dan, we call them Dad, they were always ready to assist us whenever we needed it.
I love that. I'd never really occurred to me that Dad is the perfect acronym, because I've been saying, Benioff, Weiss, and Wu, and that sounds kind of like a legal firm on a bad TV
It's a
show.
mouthful.
It's a mouthful. I like Dad.
Dad.
DAD. That's fantastic. Thank you. I needed that. So we're looking ahead at a potential season two. Obviously, that hasn't been announced yet. I know
Mhm.
Dad are working on the scripts and outlines now after what they told me last week, which is very exciting. So I'm thinking, okay, Saul is now a wall facer.
Right.
Well, he's been chosen as a wall facer. Do you think, or do you want Saul to embrace the wall facer concept, or is he inextricably going to be skeptical and self-doubting?
I think that his skepticism is something that's just inherently a part of him. And it's something that I like about Saul, because I just think that in life, he just challenges everything. He never takes anything for face value. I would, me as an individual, I'm very ambitious and career driven, all of that. And he is not. So I don't really identify with Saul. So naturally, I would like to see him rise to the occasion. Um, but it makes for good drama that doesn't happen right away. So I think I would really like to see something really, really, really major happen to pull him out of his funk and to pull him to that side of wanting to do something and wanting to help humanity in any
Yeah,
way that he can.
in any way that he can. And so there hopefully will be some event or trigger that makes him realize, okay, this actually might work and it's the only way forward for humanity. And it becomes quite existential. Um, but given that it's such a huge responsibility and potentially, Saul might see this as being trapped or cursed. I just always wonder with actors, you're trying to piece together this person that you're playing. Is there a part of you that would maybe relish Saul struggling with this and not rising to the occasion and self-destructing? Would that be an interesting path for you, or is that just too incomprehensible to even go there?
No, no, no. As an actor, that's exciting. I think I've always enjoyed playing and watching performances that involve the underdog. Someone that no one really believes in or thinks that they're going to amount to much. I think those are the people that I end up rooting for when I watch those characters on screen. I think that him struggling to get to that place where I think audiences want him to go to help humanity. I think him struggling makes the arc interesting. I think in drama you need a lot of zigzags and different directions before you get to your final destination. That's what brings the audience on the ups and downs of a person's life, and that's what makes it interesting to watch on screen. So I embrace it. I would love to see some attempts and failed attempts, and then hopefully at the very end of that, someone who has found their spot in the sun.
Yeah, absolutely. Given that you said that you did do a bit of a deep dive, you wanted to understand what the show was about, but when
Mhm.
you're playing a role like this, where the character doesn't fully comprehend what's happening and how he fits into the bigger picture, is it sometimes helpful to not know too much about the mythology and just be as in the dark, or better than to be completely across all the detail?
I think it's a happy medium. When we're talking about who Saul is based off of, he doesn't appear in the first book, and so I really had a lot of freedom coming from Dad to play Saul how I felt intrinsically he was meant to be played. Naturally, because compared to the rest of his colleagues and his friends who have all done great things in physics, he's kind of taken a step back and decided to stay at the university that he attended and just be a lab assistant. So he's the type of person that, even though he lacks ambition, if you really, really look at Saul, he's someone that's very vigilant. He sits back, he watches, he pays very close attention, and when he's needed, especially from his loved ones, that's when he steps forward and he shows his talents. So I think, yeah, it's a good medium to just kind of trust your instincts as an actor, pay attention to what's on the page, and allow yourself to let go and just do what you feel is instinctually right for the character as far as choices.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I was also thinking that, any show attached to David and Dan particularly is inevitably going to spark interest because of their work on Game of Thrones. So when I guess, did you go in with some kind of expectation or just even subconscious because of, the level that they're playing at and, you wanting to kind of be part of that team?
Expectation, no, I knew it was going to be a high level project just because, like you said, the name that came in on the email ticket, I was like, okay, well, this is quite obvious that this is going to be a huge project. I would say an expectation for myself as far as preparing. Even with my first meetings with them, I wanted them to feel that I was invested in trying to understand the material, and try to understand that the arc that they wanted me to play and how I was going to fit into the grand scheme. And once I met with them and really just saw how collaborative they are as a group and with their actors, I was really excited to get to join the team and to get to work with my talented castmates. Like, all of these guys are people that I watch on in their own movies and shows before this one. And so it was really fun to get to work with the cast that was just as a whole really excited to be together and to work with each other and to really like spend time with each other outside away from filming. It was a really lovely experience. So I think, yeah, from that first day when I got that email, I was really excited to get an opportunity to come on board.
I can imagine. And then after the fact, what did you most value or learn from Dad, particularly after you had spent some time with them and kind of grew as an actor on the show?
I would say trusting the process. I think that the world that they're building, it takes time, showcasing all of the characters in the show bit by bit, trying not to ask too many questions of them, and just trusting that they're building it the best way that they can and the best way that they know how to do. That was something that I think all of the cast really released and let go of, and I think that created a safer space for us to make fun choices in different scenes and with different partners on a day-to-day basis. So I think that's something that I will be taking with me moving forward in TV and film, just to really take the time to research and know your character and talk to the showrunners or directors, whomever. And then once it's time to actually do it, just to let go and just come in every day and try to do your best work.
What did you think about the big reveal in episode 2, which of course is also from the novels, about when Ye decides to ignore the warning from the pacifist Santi and she just decides to press that button? What did you think about that reveal?
I think it's such a big one just because I think that it allows so many audiences at home to like have conversations with the people in their homes about if they would have done the same thing. And that's actually a question that I've gotten quite a few times during the press run, was like, if you had that opportunity and if you were in your shoes, would you press the button? Would you try to reach out to another civilization that could come and help us get our get our world together, fix the problem? And I was always like, hell no, like no, because I don't know if their idea of fixing is helpful, if they're kind, if they come in peace, or they come to destroy worlds. Like that's a question I don't want the answer to. So I don't think I would have pushed that button, especially if they had already told us not to do it. So
Yeah, and then of course told that we're bugs.
right.
I just got to say, Jess Hong agrees with you, obviously. But look, I told her, maybe a bit shamefully, that I probably would have pressed the button. So
Oh, no
that's
way.
problematic, I think. I'm sorry, humanity. I'm really sorry, but I probably pressed the damn button just from curiosity. I have a non-free body problem question for you to wrap things up, and that
Sure.
is, I can't not ask you about The Leftovers, because to me that's probably one of the greatest shows ever made. And that is not hyperbole. It's just that brilliant.
Oh, amazing. Thank you.
It was such a breakthrough role for you. You're playing the son of Erica and John, played by Kevin Carroll, the amazing Kevin Carroll, and of course the amazing Regina King,
Of course.
as their devout teenage son. It was such a while ago now. Obviously, you're all grown up. Obviously, that was a while ago, and it took me a while to go, is that the same Jovan Adepo? Yes, it is. What's the first thing that comes to mind when you think back on that time on that set with those amazing people?
I think that was a big transitional stage of my life because that was my first job. That was like my first SAG acting job. So before that, I was waiting tables, and I was working in a senior home in Beverly Hills. That was like my day-to-day job. And so auditioning for the leftovers with no credits, I mean, just a green resume, and going into Vicki Thomas's office, who I had been in her office a lot over the 2 years before that, and just getting that call from that Mimi leader and Damon Lindelof had seen my tape and knew that I had no credits, but they were like, "That's our Michael Murphy. We want him on our show." That was just such an amazing moment for me because I remember being on the bus, getting off of work and getting a phone call from my manager. And she's like, "You have to quit your job because you have to go to Austin, Texas, like in 3 days." And I was like, so I like, it's the dream. It's what you hope for, to get that call. You made it. You're going to be on the pictures now. That was what the feeling was like. And it was just the coolest thing ever. It was I'm always going to remember what it felt like that first day, being scared. I knew about like how to hit marks and all that stuff. I wasn't completely green, but it was just really cool. The first night we were filming a night scene with Stephen Williams, who plays my grandfather.
Yeah.
And when we finished the last scene of that day, Mimi Leader, the main producer of the show, came up to me and she was like, "You're golden. You are golden. You're going to have a great career." Like, oh my God. So I remember that very vividly.
Hello.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
It's a very special part.
You can't see it because of the blur, but I've got this great massive poster from the show that Damon signed for me and wrote me a message. So I'll never forget it. They're such cool people. Yeah, that's it's a great lesson, I guess, for young aspiring actors to just keep going and not worry about not having the credits. Jess Hong had nothing before she got the role of a lifetime in Three Body Problem. It happens.
Exactly. It does happen.
Talented. Mate, that's an amazing story. Thank you for your time today. Congrats on some beautiful work in Three Body Problem. And please hurry up, and can you all just get on to getting season 2 done? Because I'm waiting.
I'm getting them on the phone as soon as I can. Make demand season 2 now. Rob is waiting.